Welcome, friends, to another exciting episode of the Events Demystified podcast. Our show is your destination for tangible, technical, and practical advice for anyone navigating the vast sea of business, entrepreneurship, as well as the event industry. A shout out to our sponsor, Refine Events, a pioneering boutique event production agency that offers everything from planning strategy to top tier technical expertise for those groundbreaking virtual and hybrid events, or should we just call them events at this point? Who knows? Now, grab your headphones, cup of tea, coffee, whatever it is that you consume these days, sit back and let's delve into our last episode of this year's current season, the Eventful AI.
Welcome to Events Demystified podcast, where we explore and demystify the world of in-person, virtual, hybrid event AV production and technology by sharing insightful tips, tricks and tactics to make your events a success. This podcast is brought to you by Fei-Fei Events, a woman-owned boutique event production agency. And your host is Anka Trifan, a technical event planner and producer with almost 2 decades of hands-on technical experience in event production.
I'm your host, Anka Platon-Trifan, and today we are venturing into this captivating world of Gen AI and its profound impact on the future of creativity. What a proper episode to end the season with, as creativity has been the driving force behind this podcast, but it's also the driving force in all of our adventures and our business and content that we create. So in this area of such rapid technological advancement, I try to make this point. People get probably tired of it, but here's the point. Gen AI is not just a tool, it's a force that is shaping how we conceive, design, and experience creativity in every domain, including the vibrant world of event planning and production. And I've talked at length about that. You can go back in some of the episodes that we had those conversations about how AI is changing the way we plan and produce our events. Its importance lies in its ability to augment human ingenuity, offering new possibilities and perspectives that were once beyond our reach. As we stand at this intersection of technological advancement and human creativity, it's essential basically to explore and understand where this journey would take us. So joining us to navigate this exciting frontier is Lori Mazor, CEO and founder of Synthetivity, a leading visionary in the field, a leading voice in Gen AI executive education, whose insights will hopefully illuminate the potential and the promise that Gen AI has in shaping the future of creativity and event experiences. With credentials from Wellesley, Yale, and New York University, she has empowered 3,000 plus individuals, including top female executives, to leverage AI's capabilities. Quite impressive to have those individuals, those top leaders wanting to embrace AI. I can't wait to talk to Lori more about that. She's also named among LinkedIn top voices in creativity and innovation. She is a top 100 AI artist and pens the Humans of AI newsletter. Author of the upcoming Temperature Creativity in the Age of AI, Lori blends tech expertise with innovative insights. And with all of that, I just want to bring her in and have this amazing conversation I'm super excited indeed about. So let's welcome Lori in. Lori, welcome to the show, and thank you so much for joining me today.
Absolutely. I'm so excited to be here, Anka.
Well, it's exciting to learn more about your fascinating journey because as I was reading your bio, you went from architecture to AI, and now your forthcoming book, Temperature, Creativity in the Age of AI, at the intersection of technology as well as the creative process. It's funny because when I grew up, I wanted to become an architect. Unfortunately, my parents did not have the means to put me through school. But one thing that I connected the most with you, because we connected on LinkedIn, was after I was reading your newsletter, Humans of AI, and it was, I don't know if you had a different one come out since then, but it was Beyond Breaking News, the state of the AI union in media generators. And it immediately, it drew my attention because I'm all about AI and especially media production and all the things. But what I loved the most about what you're writing was the fact that right off the bat, you emphasize the critical role of women in AI, renowned for inventing some of the pivotal technology of what we are working with right now. And there's a lot of people that don't know that. And you've made a point that their work really underscores the importance of diversity and ethical considerations in AI development, shaping a more accurate and fair technological future. I really loved your insights, which really kind of reflected to me your deep understanding of this field's complexities, but also the need for ethical considerations. So, with all of that, what I want to learn more about is this intriguing aspect of your professional journey with your background and then your keen perspective on the evolution of AI. So, would you take a moment to shed some light on your career pivot and how did you make the transition, or why did you make the transition into the field of Gen AI?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as you know, I was trained as an architect, and I picked that profession particularly because it was a combination of math and creativity. And, I really wanted to be able to use my whole brain in the work that I was doing. But I was recruited into work for a university, and I did that for about 25 years. And during the pandemic, like many of our audience members, I was exhausted. So I took a career break in April of 2022 and I did absolutely nothing. I went on vacation. I did, all kinds of things to just restore myself. And it was the same time that image generators had come out. And so I started playing with Midjourney, and literally that's what I thought it was, just play. I was making buildings, I was making fashion, I was turning cars into fashion. I was just like having
I
the
bet
time
you're
of my
like a
life.
kid in the candy store.
I was totally a kid. I was totally a kid. And I was approaching it like with the mindset of a child, right? Where I was just exploring and having fun. And as I was doing this, I also knew that I wanted to start to have a voice in the public sphere. And so I started writing on LinkedIn, and I literally just started chronicling my journey. And so the more I did it, the more I found other like-minded people who are in the AI community. And then they were interested in what I was doing. So, they kept egging me on. I kept posting and posting things. So by this time last year, I was really talking a lot about image generators and creativity and art, and ChatGPT comes out, right? And so at this point, I see a posting for a high school teacher of generative AI. And this is like right before the Christmas break. And I'm like, you know what? I'm looking around and I'm not a teacher, but I have just as much expertise as anybody. Like, I'm going to throw my, yeah, I always like mess up these analogies. I'm going to throw my ring in my
Me
hat in
too.
the ring. Yeah.
I think brains like ours always do.
Yeah.
I'm actually
Like
kind of
something into
enjoying that I
something.
found someone else that does, because I always mess those things up.
And this is what I'm operating like an AI, right? Like I'm hallucinating. So I literally just, applied for the job right before Christmas, and I got it in January. And so I built this curriculum for high school students, and it was a boot camp. So it was, a week where I needed to keep them engaged. But I knew I didn't want to teach high school. And so I looked around my network, and I just put a little post in my social network. The network is called Chief, and it's all women executives. And I said, anybody interested in learning about AI? And 300 women responded. So I did my first classes. I did 3 classes, and I did them for free just to kind of test it out and see, if I needed to shift things. But I was like, you know what? If there's anything I learned in business school, this means there's a market and you better jump into it now because this moment is
Yeah.
not going to come again. And so I did that last year in about February. I've now taught 7 boot camps with senior executives. I teach to everybody, but I say that I designed my course for women, the BIPOC, and the LGBT community because we interact with AI in a different way. We ask different questions. We are more sensitive to the implicit biases. And so, but everybody comes. And I think that's just a testament to say that diversity is good for men too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that because, again, as a woman in AV productions for 20 years, wannabe architect that ever came to be. So instead, I wanted to sound engineering and video production.
Yeah.
I understand the biases and the need for more representation, especially of women in such technically heavy fields. And I know women in tech in general have always struggled with that and have always, tried to figure out ways to overcome this challenge. And I feel like it goes back to also women that like us that have been in those technical heavy fields to be more vocal about the opportunities that are out there. You don't have to be like a math science. Your mind doesn't have to operate like a robot to find opportunities in those fields. And as you mentioned, like you operated for 25 years in this high level technical field, but then you became an educator to teach others that there's options, there's opportunities, and it just takes creativity, curiosity, and a desire to learn and grow. And that to me is what spoke the most from that one article that you posted, because I saw beyond the words your desire to bring more diversity and more conversations to the surface when it comes to the misrepresentation of women in a lot of those fields. And it doesn't have to be just the gender. It can be any gender, whatever, how you want to identify yourself to be, but there is a need for more of us in this field. So with that, I am super excited to move into the next question. Now, I feel like AI and creativity have been this obviously transformative journey. It's funny because I had my daughter, 7-year-old. I asked her, "Hey, give me if you could create any creature out there, what would you create?" And we were in Midjourney, and I asked her to give me the prompt. Like she drove the prompt, and she wanted to create this unicorn dragon in a magical forest. And to this day, like many months later since that drawing, that art came to be digital art, I'm still using that visual because it's extraordinary. I actually blew it all up in a print size and put it on a Canva, and it's digital art because she created that. And obviously we can go back to the question, who really owns that? But right now, I'm so impressed with what she was able to create as a 7-year-old, because she was not limited by what's possible or what's needed or what's okay. She just went for it. And I feel like we adults could take a page from that 7-year-old child and apply it to our business, creativity, to our future. Based on your extensive experience, what insights have you gained so far about how creativity is working in tandem with AI and it's not maybe stifling it, right? Like, how does AI act as a tool to unleash the potential of human creativity rather than, stifling it?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I start with the idea and the premise, really, that generative AI, which is very different from the kind of AI that we were accustomed to, right? Which is built into Netflix or your phone, right? Like we've had AI for a long time. That's discriminative AI. But generative AI is designed to mimic human creativity. That's its purpose and intention. It's not designed to be an automation tool. It's not really designed to be a productivity tool, right? Those are us grown-ups trying to impose our standards for what we think business is about and how we could utilize it. And I think we're going to start seeing it evolve to do some of those things more naturally. But out of the box, I call it a chaos machine. Right. And one of the beautiful things about it is that it's able to tap into just a wider spectrum of ideas, right? It's been trained on billions and trillions of parameters of data. And so, one of the things that I've been learning as I've been researching and writing my book is there are so many myths about creativity. And a lot of them scientists have only been studying creativity for 50 years. Okay, so I turned 50 this year. That means that, what people believed about human creativity back in the 1950s, right? That's what we learned as kids. And it just is all not true. So, first of all, like there is actually no left brain, right brain where one side of your brain is creative. Creativity happens in all parts of the brain. And there was actually a very good study that was done, I think, in like 2013, that looked at all of the neuroscience. So, like, now we can see images of people's brains, right? And could definitively say that across all of these studies, creativity did not happen in one part of the brain,
Yeah,
right?
there's different parts of your brain lighting up while
Different
that's
parts of the
happening.
brain light up. Exactly. Now, what happens as we move from kids to adults is our brains become more efficient, right? And so, like, if you think of it as like an open field, and if you always are walking on the same path, you begin to like have a barren path there, and that path makes a shortcut, right? From your house to your neighbor's house. And that's what our brains do, right? They do that so that we can process a lot of information quickly. But that also inhibits our ability to think divergently, right? And so kids naturally think divergently, right? Because they haven't formed all those pathways in their brain. But adults, like, we need to have a few more techniques at our disposal in order to tap into that. And so that's where I think AI is amazing, right? It's amazing as a brainstorming tool. It's amazing as an idea generator. It's amazing as a place to start, right? And I think that's where I always begin is like, let me use it to just expand my mind beyond my narrow focus and what I know and what I have conceived of.
That's quite a tough provoking perspective, and I loved how you brought a bit of the neuroscience behind all of this, because I'm all about that. But it also leads me to wonder, how historically our unique abstract thinking and communication skills have elevated us basically above other species. But as technology accelerates, we're nearing a new era marked by, we're talking about AI now, but we're going to be looking into super intelligence, SI. Considering the swift pace of technological revolutions, millennia shrank to centuries, then to basically mere minutes. Now, with some of the ChatGPT answer is like instant. My son the other day was asking me, what was it? The capital of Delaware. And it takes me a minute to like, before I could even think the answer, Alexa already answered.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're crafting machines capable of learning and reasoning, a stepstone obviously towards AI's ultimate aim, matching and suppressing human intellect, while true general intelligence remains elusive. Advancements are quite swift, and they're definitely hitting at a future where AI's profound influence reshapes our world, holding immense potential yet posing unprecedented challenges. And one of those challenges, as I'm looking at it, it's AI's growing role in the creative process. But what are maybe some of the ethical implications, particularly regarding content ownership? As I mentioned with, my daughter's AI generated uni dragon corn.
Yeah. No, I mean, there are some foundational ethical issues that we have to contend with. But I think it's important to put those ethical issues into a context, because the people who are, really working in this field and, coming up with applications like ChatGPT and, Midjourney, they just have a fundamental different philosophy about ownership and what this technology can and should do for humanity. Now, we can criticize and challenge them all we want, right? And I think there are plenty of reasons to do that. But the idea behind all these applications was that we have a compendium of human knowledge that we can all leverage. And they always say, like, for all of humanity, right? In order to level up our species, right? And there are some major problems that our human brains have not been able to solve. And even our human brains in communion with other human brains, right? Like working in teams. And our human brains also have extraordinary biases, right? And we have emotions, which also can like get in the way of us making rational decisions. So, this premise was that let's take everything, and rather than asking permission, we're going to ask for forgiveness, right? Now,
I
if you
love that. That's actually something that I've kind of like run my life by.
yeah, I mean, it's a risky position to take, right? And so, in my book, I talk about temperature, and temperature really is like a spectrum, right? So this
Yeah.
is like a high temperature act. Like we're gonna, in most businesses that break out of the mold, take some major risk that is on the border of legality, right? Otherwise, everybody would be doing it. So it was a major risk. Now, absolutely, there are going to be people who are really upset about that. Upset primarily because who profits, right? Like this is not. So the way the story has played out is this is not open source technology. This is not technology that's available to everybody. In fact, if you watch what happened with the board of OpenAI, in like one weekend, they got rid of all the women and still claim to be developing a technology that's for the good of all humanity, right? And they have a major like for-profit investor, Microsoft, right? And nobody can build this technology without billions and billions of dollars, right? So, I mean, we're seeing the rub of some like idealistic principles and the reality of capitalism, right? And I think this is like a Shakespearean human struggle that's been going on for ages, and we're likely not going to fix, at least not on this podcast. So,
Would be nice. I mean, I would love to aim for that.
yeah, I love solving all the world's problems in an hour.
Yes,
So
exactly.
yeah, so
What a high aim.
totally. So I wrote a series in the newsletter for 4 weeks because the U.S. Copyright Office opened a public comment period, and I think this is a really important thing for citizens to realize is that this technology has at least elevated the conversation to a public conversation where they are soliciting input, and this is very different from the last wave of tech, which nobody asked if we wanted our data to be used in order to make predictions about what we would like to watch on Netflix, right? Nobody asked us if we wanted to have cameras all around the city surveilling us, right? So I think a lot of what we're seeing here in the public square is a reaction to the last wave of technology where nobody had the opportunity to weigh in, and really a global conversation in advance of the technology really being able to do the things that people are saying it can do. I mean, right now, it still has severe limitations, and it's not taking over anybody's job anytime soon.
I know. I think that fear has been definitely overblown out of proportions. I do lead a few boot camps as well, especially for women in business and leadership here locally and at the university level for grad students. And my first premise, the disclaimer that I start with, if you may, is AI won't be taking over your job anytime soon, but someone using AI might. So might as well step up your skills and get in the know, right?
Yeah.
I mean, since the 1940s, I feel like the quest to create AI that mirrors our human intelligence and human creativity and thought process has been the driving force in technology. Looking ahead, this concept that I mentioned of super intelligence, SI, as it looms large, there's actually quite a few predictions out there where the experts say that by 2075, AI will match human intellect with super intelligence emerging shortly after. But then we also saw that we'll be having like, flying cars by 2020. And that didn't quite pan out to be. There is something to be said about this era of advanced AI that promises profound changes in not just creativity, but beyond. And the future where AI's potential is boundless is here, is now. So
Yeah.
looking ahead to a future where AI matches, eventually surpasses human intellect, we will approach this pivotal point, a juncture in our relationship with technology as we envision a world graced by super intelligence. I'm curious what, the human element in the age of AI will look like. And I feel like this dialogue is not just about, the advancements of AI, but also about maintaining the irreplaceable human touch in collaboration and in creative processes. So, with that, how do we ensure that AI serves as a partner in the creative process, enhancing and expanding our capabilities while preserving the core elements that make our creations distinctively human?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's one of the things that drew me to the technology in the first place. And, so I'm not so interested in just like straight prompting with words. Like that had a moment for me. And I was like playing around a lot with it and seeing what outputs I could get. But now I do kind of more complex processes. So I might
Mm-hmm.
take like two disparate images and blend them together. I might do that in combination with words. I might continue to expand upon a theme that I've been working on. I might integrate some of my own drawing into the process. And so, at this point, and, this is now like 18 months into using the tools. I just feel it's like one of the tools that I have at my disposal. And particularly as we move into not only being able to make still images, but being able to create videos and to be
Mm-hmm.
able to create three-dimensional experiences. Like this is really fascinating to me. And so I don't know, I still am in the mode of just like playing, but I've always seen it as a partnership, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
me and the machine, and it's a dialogue, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so I think one of the things I talk about is the balance of chaos and control. And, if you think of the AI as the chaos machine and you being the control, right? What can you control? Like you can control the words that you use, right? You can control the sequence of those words. You can control the way that you structure your inquiry, and you can control how you curate what comes back to you. Right. And so I really emphasize for my students that, you want to take 100% of your own control. And I think this is very much a parallel for, how we can exist in all kinds of situations
Mm-hmm.
where we are not in control of everything, right? Like you're applying for a job and, you do your part, but you're not on the receiving end.
Yeah.
You're not making the decision. You're not the hiring committee. You do work for a client. You can deliver the best product that you are capable of delivering. You're not responsible for how they receive that,
Yeah.
right? And how they use it. And so, I've really just learned a kind of a deep philosophical level through this practice. And I almost think of it as kind of a meditation or a yoga practice, right? Of like, this is my opportunity to learn to get comfortable with chaos, right? And then to really take ownership and responsibility of my part. And to do that as excellently as I can.
Love that. I mean, this balance, I love the balance that you mentioned between, the technological progress that AI is giving you, but the human intuition and creativity that really forms the cornerstone of your output of what you're putting out there. And AI is the enabler, but you are the one coming up with all of those ideas and providing the input to get that output. It just makes it faster and maybe better than what, or maybe you could get there, but it might take you a very long time
Yeah, I mean,
without.
absolutely. I mean, when I was in architecture school, the process to get from having an idea to being able to deliver a visual on what that idea represented, right, was weeks.
Yeah.
Because we were drawing with our hands.
AutoCAD, anybody?
No, we were not even, there wasn't even
Not.
AutoCAD, right? Not even AutoCAD. Like, I'm dating myself, but
This is like when you're drawing.
this was, we were drawing, right? And, and like, what
And it
was
had
I
to be
doing?
exact. Like you can't just like draw this and be like, imagine this being.
Yeah, like the ability to translate your ideas into visual language, right? Like that's really what we learn. And so it's just that the tools are different now, and the tools allow you to instantaneously be able to move from idea to realization.
Now, let's explore a bit the foundations of your work. Could you share with us just some of the core principles that led you to start Sensitivity, but also guide your work?
So the core principles of sensitivity start with the name. So sensitivity, I know it's a mouthful. Everybody asks me how to pronounce it. And actually, when I first started my business, somebody told me it was the worst name I could possibly have picked. Which, I'm a bit of a rebel sometimes. And I was like, well, exactly why. I like it because people ask me about it and I can explain. So it's a portmanteau, which is two words combined together: synthesis and creativity. So I had always had this feeling that creativity is a misnomer. We don't create anything. We synthesize from the world around us, even as an architect.
So true. Oh my gosh, I got to stop you for a second because I just had this conversation with someone this week alone. And we were talking about that. Like when we think we're creative, a lot of our creative juices and processes are informed by our past experiences and our past influences. So right on. Go on with that. I just needed to like go a little giddy on that.
Yeah, there's like no big bang happening in the world right now that like all of a sudden it's something new. It's evolutionary. It builds off something in the past. Sometimes it feels revolutionary because we cross over that moment when it feels new, right? It feels like something we've never seen before. But the truth of the matter is, like, you can trace its lineage, right? You can trace the lineage. So I always wanted my business to be about synthesizing the world around me, right? And so in this moment, it really is about thinking about synthetic thinking. And I say that AI is just as much about what it has to teach us about being human as it is about us teaching people how to use AI, right? This is very much a moment of self-reflection and understanding where we want to place our values and our choices. And, I am of the mindset that we will get to a point where computers can be creative, right? Like that's what we're trying to do. That's what we're trying to mimic. I don't see creativity as a human superpower. Okay. And maybe that's because I've been like under the hood for a long time and I know that it's not magic, right? There's a process that you go through. There are moments when, yes, you're in a flow state and things move more quickly than your mind is able to be conscious of, right? But it's not a magical process. And, there aren't like creative geniuses, right? Everybody has this potential within them. So I don't hold it to be precious, right? Creativity is not precious. What's precious is our free will. Our free will is something that cannot be replaced by a computer. And we have choices to make, right? And so I emphasize making smart choices, right? Building your life around your own values and making the choices that contribute to the betterment of yourself, your family, your community, humanity, right? And I think those are the things that will define humans versus machines moving forward.
That's an excellent answer. And yes, it took me a minute to learn how to pronounce it. But now that I know, it makes sense. So I appreciate you just, giving us the behind the scenes of where that came from and what it is. Now, before we dive into more of our conversation, let's take a quick break to acknowledge our podcast sponsor and supporter, and we will be right back. Before we move any further, I wanted to give a quick shout out to our main sponsor, Trifan Events, which is a boutique event planning and production agency that will come alongside you, offering personalized event planning and technical support, strategic event design, production and technology management, and flawless execution for live, virtual, and hybrid events. The team at Trifan Events is passionate about planning and producing event experiences that get people involved with true moments of interaction, engagement, and co-creation, while offering white glove treatment throughout the entire planning process, enabling you to reach your event goals with the use of creativity, production tools, and event technology. To find out how Trifun Events can plan and produce your event become memorable, go to trifunevents.com. All right, welcome back, friends. If you're just joining us, we have the incredible Lori Mazor, CEO and founder of Sensitivity, which we just learned how to pronounce and what it stands for. Go back to find out. Lori, you're recognized as a top voice in creativity and innovation. How do you balance technical expertise with your creative intuition in most of your projects?
Yeah, I feel like it's just at this point very seamless. I mean, I really love technology, and I actually might need to stage like a technological intervention on myself in the new year. I think one of the things that technology does for me, because I'm a polymath, and so I love doing a lot of different things, but I wouldn't say I'm necessarily an expert in any one of those things, but it allows me to go deeper than I would normally have the time, knowledge, or ability to do. And so I think that I might need to like scale back a little bit in the coming year in terms of how deep I go in how many things. Because yeah, the possibilities are endless, and I do need to sleep like most normal humans.
I might identify with you very strongly on those things. And the potential of trying to find balance has crossed my mind.
Yeah, yeah, balance is
It's
not
just like the
always.
desire to really do that versus wanting to do all the things. And I am passionate about a lot of things, like you said. So
Yeah.
it's hard for sure. But I can definitely understand the concept of how balance is crucial. So I'm curious, as an educator, how do you approach teaching executives and others about leveraging AI in their business and their creative endeavors? Because as you mentioned, you have put on a lot of AI boot camps, courses, and the interest has been really high. And there's a lot of, especially women, very receptive to wanting to learn more. And I've actually had similar experiences. So I'm curious, how do you approach your teaching in this particular field that you mentioned? There's a specific audience you wanna attract. So would you share a bit more about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of my primary goals is to make sure that everyone who comes through my courses feels like they have enough knowledge to go in and talk with the engineers in their office
Mm-hmm.
and be able to stand their ground, right? Which
Mm-hmm.
means that you need to have kind of a working understanding of how the technology works. And you need to be able to use it yourself, right? To have hands-on experience. And what I have found is that, as we move up the ladder into more serious management positions, being heads of companies, playing roles in the C-suite, being, team leaders, we have to be in the role of being strategists, but we don't
Mm-hmm.
always have the hands-on experience. And I think this is a case where you've got to use it in order to be able to plan for it, right? You don't
Mm-hmm.
need to have like deep knowledge and experience, but you need to have at least a little bit. So I insist that everybody get a subscription to ChatGPT Plus and to Midjourney. And even people who are like financial analysts are generating images, right? Because I
Yeah.
want them to understand what's possible. And they actually tap into aspects of their own creativity that they didn't even realize that they had. So, I think that's first and foremost, like demystifying it, make sure people understand what's under the hood, be able to have educated conversations. Yeah. And then, really be able to be leaders in their company in having these conversations and directing the opportunities to real use cases and applications.
I love that. I love how your education not only empowers confidence and creativity, but it also gives the ability to use this language of power when you do have to have those conversations, even if you're not the most technical savvy of them all, but having the conversation and, positioning yourself as someone that's dangerous, probably not, an expert, but still dangerous. I think it's so important, especially for us women, because a lot of, I feel like a lot of us struggle with wanting to be 100% an expert into something before we open our mouth, right?
Yeah.
Which is not the case for most men out there. They'll be like, I will pretend that I know what I'm talking about until I have to actually go back and learn about it because I'm forced to.
Yeah, I think that's true. And look, I think that like you, like I've always been in fields where there were less women than men. Though my architecture class was 50-50. What happens is women drop out of the profession, particularly as they have kids. So, I was walking boiler rooms as an early architect, right? And engaging with union professionals who are like hands-on fixing machinery, and I've never had that experience. Like, I needed to know the right questions to ask, and I needed people to be able to respect me. And I found that admitting that you don't know something is a point of strength, right? Like, everybody wants to teach you what they know, right? So if I would walk into a boiler room and I'd be like, you know what, I don't
How do you
understand.
do that?
What does that mean? Like, people take such pride in their work and they want to talk about it, right? And so, I've tried to use that ignorance as a way of gaining more understanding, right? And so I'm like very clear, even with my students, they ask me a question, I'm like, I don't know. And actually what we find with particularly large language models is that one of the biggest challenges they have is admitting that they don't know something. Right? This is what we call hallucination, right? And it really is just filling in the latent space between what you know and you don't know. And, one of the problems that computer scientists are trying to solve right now is to get it not to fill that blank with just something made up.
Right. Like random information that makes no sense whatsoever.
Exactly.
It could also be that you might have used all your tokens in ChatGPT, but that's a different story. Now, your book is such an exciting development. I want to learn more about how it came to be, and what are your readers expecting to get from Temperature Creativity in the age of AI?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a book that I actually started writing and I didn't even know I was writing about AI until 10 years later. So like flashback to when I was in business school, I was really fascinated with game theory. And there was a phenomenal professor, Adam Brandenburger, who wrote a book called Co-opetition, which was really about the competitive marketplace.
Yes. I spoke about that in one of my podcasts.
It's like, he's amazing. The book is amazing. And it really is about moving away from a zero-sum game, right? Where there are winners and losers to an environment where everyone wins. And in order for everybody to win, we have to create more value, right? And so I use the example of like, it's good to have all of the shoe stores on one street, right? Because then you attract more customers and everybody's business increases. So, when I started writing the book, I was managing a lot of creative people and giving them project briefs, and we were designing buildings. And I started to realize that different people had different relationships with rules. Some people like to follow the rules, some people like to break the rules. And I would give teams the same brief, and one team would follow all the rules, but it would be really uninspired. And the other team would develop something like extraordinary and inspiring and not follow any of the rules in the project brief, right? And so I was this negotiator in between, trying to get us to an even place. So just that was the foundation for some work that I did in identifying rule systems. And those rule systems are recipes, improvisations, negotiations, prohibitions, and chances. And they move from very tightly written rules that are designed for automation, a recipe, you follow it, you get the exact same thing every time, to a game of chance where you really are giving up your own free will to laws of probability to see what comes out, right? So this turns out to be exactly the way that AI works. And it's a metric called temperature. Temperature is a dial that we can turn up or turn down in order to have the machine siphon randomness. You turn it up, it pulls more disparate things together. You turn it down, and it looks for the most frequent, the most regular, the most popular, right? And the most likely repeatable or automatable. And so when I had that light bulb moment, it was like, oh my God, this is my book. Like I've been working on
Yeah.
this for 10 years, and this is what I'm going to write about. And I literally wrote the entire book in like 9 weeks. I'm editing it in a lot more than 9 weeks.
Yes.
The major idea, the structure of the book, really just flowed out as soon as that light bulb moment happened.
That's fascinating. I'm actually in the same process of I've written the book. I'm in the editing process, and now I feel like it will never end. And there's days when I just don't even want to go back to it because it's like so overwhelming, and I don't even know, where that's gonna go. But it has to come out at one point. My deadline was this year. Obviously, this year has passed now.
Yeah. Well, and I set a hard deadline for myself because I am in pre-sale. So people have bought the book already and I better
Yeah.
deliver. So that was a good milestone to set for myself.
I love it. Well, I'm sure that a lot of people are eagerly awaiting its release. You can count me on that list as well. Now, what I want to go into next, because this is more of a personal note and it's something that I'm passionate about. As I said, I'm definitely passionate about technology production, AI, and also wellness and mental and physical fitness, which I feel like none of the things that we do as humans would be possible if we didn't start, with taking care of our mind, our body, our spiritual selves, and that's what makes the whole us well functioning. So to me, that has been like a huge revelation in 2020 when I needed to take charge of each one of those elements of my lives, because I felt like things were just like spiraling out of control, and it was my desire to try to control something, and the only thing I could control was like this one person, right? It's like, what can I do with the things that I have, and how can I get myself riled in and controlled? And that's how my natural bodybuilding competitions came about, and a lot of lessons learned in the gym as I'm like squatting and doing all the things. Now, we both know that the tech field is a very demanding industry, and I'm curious personally, how do you maintain your mental and physical well-being in order to manage all the things you're doing and the challenges that are thrown at you?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I would say it's a lifelong journey, and I've gone through different phases of taking care of my body as the years have gone on. I think most recently in my 40s, and really like probably starting around 35, I decided that I wanted to start running, and I'd really been like not taking care of my body for a while. I had been a dancer as a young person, and I just never found anything that was like as engaging. But I started running, and of course, running is like a gateway drug to endurance sports. So I started running, then my partner gave me a bike, and so then I was like running and biking. I've always enjoyed swimming, and so then I needed to cross train, so I threw the swimming in, and then
Now it's a triathlon.
So I competed for 10 years in triathlon, and did up to half Ironmans. I have no Ironman in me. I did one marathon. But it was really tough on my body. And as I started this phase of my new business, I've really had to like let my body go because you can't do everything all at once. Right. And so I think when I said I need to stage an intervention with myself in 2024, I think 2024 is my year of synthesizing mind and body, like getting back into just doing routine exercise for fun, not necessarily to compete, which for me is challenging because the goal of competing, I don't really care how I perform out there. As long as I finish, I'm like, that's a winner.
Yes. Yeah.
But like having that goal of like, people are watching me, and like if I don't show up, I'm going to be embarrassed, like that actually like really works to motivate me. When I just say like I'm going to go to the gym today, that's not enough to compete with all of the other interests that I have, right? And so this is my, like, I think this is my challenge for 2024 is like really just finding that like good, healthy physical exercise to complement the stuff I'm doing with my brain. And, you know, I think I really do believe in what we call embodied cognition, like our bodies and our minds work together. And so actually like being able to brainstorm, being able to synthesize ideas, like getting outside and doing those things physically with your body, like it just is like helps your mind to function so much better, right?
There's
So yeah,
actually science behind that. You're absolutely right. I think I'm right there with you. You know, for me, in order to keep myself motivated, I have to have an end goal in mind. And for me, it's those competitions. Like I already competed in November and I took a first place and a second place in a natural bodybuilding competition. And now I already see my next competition because that's what keeps me accountable to myself, that I have some goals that I'm going to reach. I'm never going to give up on myself or the promises I've made to myself. So that's what keeps me going. And then you figure out how that's going to work out, you know, in your schedule. I hope that 2024 becomes that year for you, the same way it has become for me, because it's been such a revelation in my capacity enhancer in the things that I can do when my body feels in top shape. Now, as parting thoughts, if you could just let our audience know where they can connect with you and learn more about Gen AI, your adventures into Gen AI into the future, but also, you know, the visions of the future in creativity.
Yeah, absolutely. So the best place to find me is on LinkedIn. And in my LinkedIn profile, you will have access to my newsletter on LinkedIn. There also is a link to my website. And at my website, you can sign up for classes, you can buy my book, you can see my recent speaking engagements and podcasts. You'll be up there. And that's, yeah, those are the two places that I try and live.
I love it. Thank you so much, Lori, for sharing your invaluable insights, sharing your journey, sharing the, you know, vision of the future, what this might look like for you. And I wish you a very happy holiday season with plenty of rest. And then looking forward to what 2024 might look like for you in this very fast transforming field of Gen AI.
So crazy. Thank you so much, Anka.
Thank you. All right, friends, this wraps up another fantastic episode on the Events Demystified podcast. A huge thank you to our guest, Lori Mazor, for joining us today and sharing her invaluable insights into the world of Gen AI and creativity. To all of our listeners, if you found today's conversation as enlightening and as interesting as I did, make sure to subscribe to the podcast. Stay tuned for more episodes featuring brilliant minds from the AI community, from the event industry community, as well as the business community, as we continue to explore the cutting edge of event technology, creativity, and innovation. Until next time, keep innovating, keep crafting unforgettable experiences that leave a lasting legacy, and keep staying eventful. This is your host, Anka Platon Trifan, signing off. See you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Events Demystified podcast. If you enjoyed this podcast, please take a moment to review it, rate it, and share it with other event professionals that could benefit from it. Connect with us on social at Events Demystified Podcast. We would love to hear from you and what you're up to. If you'd like to learn more about Tree Fan Event services and find out if we're a good fit in supporting your event, can we help your event be successful with a 20-minute free consultation? Link in the episode's notes. Thanks for tuning in.